Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Marston, that's Zimtech guy. In this video, we take a look at the origins of the names of suburbs in Harare, the capital city of Zimbabwe, and I'm sure a few of them might even surprise you. But before we do that, if you like the content on this channel, please consider partnering with me on Patreon from as little as $3. You can help me improve the quality and consistency of videos on this channel. On that note, help me thank my biggest Patreon, Tom Bodkin. Thank you so much for the continued support. Let's just give you a bit of background. The original settlers were promised 15 mining claims and farms measuring 3,000 acres for participating in the occupation. You can watch my video on the history of Harare. I'll leave a card above. Most settlers opted to go prospecting for minerals. But after many went hungry in the first year, a few decided to go farming. The issue of title was only resolved towards the end of 1891, so many sold the right to the land before the deeds were granted. What we know as modern-day Harare was just a series of farms and bushes teeming with wild animals, including lions and jackals. The authorities established a buffer zone between the farms and the developing town known as the Colonial, land which was reserved for recreational and institutional use, such as Rhodesia Harare, the Agricultural Research Station, Botanical Gardens, the police grounds, as well as several schools. This is where Harare CBD is located. Originally, there were 13 farms surrounding the Colonial, and most of the suburbs in Harare were just subdivisions from those. As the farms were subdivided, villages started to form around the main town, which were developed in town management boards and civic centers. Does that ring a bell? For example, Mabelreign Civic Center. As the boards were formed, they took parts of the original farms into their boundaries. The area where Highlands is located was first called the Nursery, but it also contains parts of Greendale and Rietfontein. By the time they were amalgamated into the Greater Salisbury on July 1, 1971, there were 8 boards. Mabelreign was the last to be formed in 1967. This is how some of the names came about from the original farms or their subdivisions. Borrowdale, one of Harare's most affluent suburbs, came much later than the rest, due entirely to its distance from the CBD. It is named after Henry Borrow, who was adjutant to the occupation forces that came in 1890. Borrow was in partnership with Frank Johnson, who was the commander of the expedition force, and Maurice Heaney, an American who was in charge of the A Troop. Settler rights were granted to the firm of Johnson, Heaney, and Borrow, over 55,000 acres over what became Borrowdale. Borrow built a dam on the Borrowdale Brook River in 1892, the first in Zimbabwe, which is still there in existence today, and started to grow a variety of crops for the nascent town. He joined the force that was to lead the attack against King Lobengula and was the first person to enter the ruins of Bulawayo. Borrow died on December 4, 1893, on the banks of the Shangani after being pinned down by Matabele warriors. Newlands was named by Colin Duff, the Secretary for Agriculture in the 1920s, who had played for Western Province before heading north. When Gerhard van der Biel, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, retired back to the Cape in 1927, he sold his farm Velmont to the Salisbury Real Estate Company, a property vehicle owned largely by Scotsmen who decided the name Highlands, partly because it is one of the highest pieces of ground in Harare, but largely because they wanted to have a Scottish flavor about the project. The first road to be cut was called Argyle Drive. A certificate of occupation was granted to a German, George Holt, and Greendale Farm was transferred to Holt and Henry Sprecher, trading as Hoped & Co. on December 17, 1892. Hoped, an engineer from the Rhine Valley, was one of the first people to follow the occupation forces into the country. It is not known how the name came about. Harry Sowenthal, who surveyed Mabelreign for the owner, Edward Kermode, who was away at the time, registered the name Mabelreign after his fiancée, Mabel Mann, not knowing Kermode had already called it Spring Valley Farm. Kermode went back to the Isle of Man, never to return. But in 1929, his son came out and subdivided the farm into Merrick, his mother's maiden name, hence Merrick Park. Monavale, derived from Mona's Isle, an island off Puerto Rico in the Caribbean. Sentosa, a Malayan word meaning peaceful, and Greencroft. Little is known about the genesis of farm number 10, which was called Mount Pleasant. As the original owner is not known, John Kidu sold it to Molly Collenbrander for £100 after owning it only for 5 days. However, because of water issues, no development took place until 1902, when it was acquired by the Cape Town property developer Alfred Blackburn, who also acquired and subdivided Avondale. Gun Hill was the shooting range for the police. The hill was known as Bare before the occupation, possibly a place where salt was produced. Alexandra Park was once part of the Common Age, encompassing Hartman Hill, and was named in honor of Queen Alexandra to celebrate the coronation of Edward VII in 1902. Milton Park was named after Sir William Milton, the much respected administrator from 1898 to 1914, who was known as the father of the civil service. The street names in the suburb are all former mayors. Strathaven is named after the area where the Mikus come from in Scotland. The British South Africa Company Reserve is now Pomona, Vinona, and part of Mount Pleasant. It was necessary for the company to keep the grazing area for its transport cattle outside the municipal area. In 1913, a Mr. McLaurin took over a portion of the farm and called it Pomona, after the largest island in the Orkney group. Later divisions were Pendennis, owned by John Dennis, and Vinona. Chisipiti is a subdivision of Rietfontein and was farmed by the Jenkinsons, which is shown as an exaggerated fountain on the school badge. Robert Ballantyne grew potatoes on his Ballantyne Park farm and was MP for Highlands from 1948 to 1953, when he died while debating a motion on the floor of the House of Assembly. Hatfield is named after the ancestral home of Marquess of Salisbury. It was first settled by Robert Snodgrass and David Mitchell, two transport riders who made a lot of money selling whiskey to the settlers in 1891. The partnership broke up shortly after another property, a subdivision of the farm Willowvale, which was given the name Adbenny, had been acquired. William Edward Webb was granted title to Prospect in 1894, although little is known of his activities. Epworth was named after the birthplace in Lincolnshire of the founder of Methodism, Charles Wesley, and his brother John. Epworth was one of the farms selected by Reverends Watkins and Shemin for the Methodist Church. Warren Park. Cousins Robert and Herbert Warren, originally from the Eastern Cape, pegged their Warren farm. Herbert left the country in 1892 after Robert contracted black water fever and died in November 1891. Highfields was the name of the farm before it was designated as a township in 1935. Mbare was an early 19th century resident in the area. Kambuzuma is reputedly a corruption of Kambitsis, as in Kwakambitsi, a Greek who had owned a store in the area. Arlington. William Harvey Brown named his farm, where Harare International Airport is now situated, Arlington, after General Robert E. Lee's home. Harvey Brown, who was from Iowa, had joined the occupation forces to collect specimens for the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. Avondale is the oldest suburb in Harare and was settled by Edward O'Connell Farrell, the veterinary surgeon attached to the occupation forces. He named it after the estate belonging to the Irish nationalist Charles Stewart Parnell in County Wicklow, on the banks of the Avon, which is called Avondale House. So there you have it, people. How much information did you know about Harare? If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. Otherwise, see you in the next video.